Well, hello and welcome back to the channel. Now, something a little bit different from me today because I'm inside. I've not got anything planned until late April when we're doing a wild camping trip in the Lake District, COVID-19 permitting. So I'm going to do a tutorial. Now, I put a poll on my Instagram asking if you were going to watch a tutorial today, would it be on focus stacking or exposure blending? At the minute it's about 80-20 in favour of focus stacking, so I think that's what we're going to do. Obviously I'm not going to do it here at home. Now, I'm not heading to the mountains, but I will be heading outside to show you guys what I think is the easiest way of focus stacking using Lightroom and Photoshop. So there are other videos out there. I'm not saying this is the only way, I'm not saying this is the best way, this is just my way. I find it pretty straightforward, and if I can do it, I'm pretty sure you can too. So what we're going to need is a camera. I'm using my Nikon D5600 with a Sigma 24-70 f2.8. Now you can do this with pretty much any camera. What you've got will likely do. In this case, I'm also going to be using some filters, just because it's quite a bright day out there and I want to make sure I can dial the right settings in to show you guys focus stacking. And I'm going to use a tripod. Having your camera on a stable base is going to really help this process. You can't move in between shots, and you'll see why when we get out there and when we get into the software and we start editing that. So I'm going to grab my things, I'm going to get my hands washed, and let's head out. Now, full disclaimer, this probably isn't the best way to shoot this image, but it will do its job in demonstrating how to focus stack and why focus stacking works well. The foreground is really close to the camera, so we're going to struggle to get the foreground and the background both in focus. The settings I've got, I'm at ISO 100 f3.5, which is quite a shallow depth of field anyway, and I'm at 1/1.6 of a second exposure time with that ND1000 filter on, just to control these highlights and slowly shut it down a little bit. So the first image I'm going to take, I'm going to focus on the immediate foreground, which is, let's say, these reeds right at the bottom. I'm just going to use autofocus for this demonstration, but you can use manual focus if that's how you prefer. I'm going to set that off, and that's going to be nice and sharp on the front of this image, which is perfect, but the background is way out of focus. So the second shot I'm going to do, I'm going to focus up on those trees in the background. Again, you can do it manual or auto. I'm going to do auto for this demo. Focus and fired off, and I've now got my two shots, one with the foreground in focus, one with the background in focus. So I'll hop back into Lightroom, get these photos edited, and I'll show you how I stack them as a focus stacked image. So it's going to be sharp, front to back. So now that we're in Lightroom and we've got the images loaded in, the first thing I want to do is I'm going to name these images foreground and background, just to make it a little bit easier. So if we zoom in there, we can see the sharp foreground and a blurry background. So I'll call this one foreground, and this one background. The next step is I'm just going to throw a quick edit on this. Not going to go overboard with it, just try and make it look something reasonable. So we'll go to the Develop tab, and then I'm just going to up my exposure a tiny little bit. I'm going to lift up those shadows, drop the highlights a bit, just trying to get it even really. Pump my vibrance, give it a little bit of clarity. Saturation, drop that blue in the sky, it looks a little bit Simpsons-esque. There we go. Okay, that's not too bad. So the next step is I'm just going to copy that edit onto the second image by highlighting both pictures down here and hitting sync. Everything selected, so that's going to copy everything I've just done on that first image over to the second one and hit synchronize. Now that that's done, we've got two images that look almost identical. The only difference obviously being is that focus shift. So again, we're going to highlight those two images, we're going to go up to the Photo tab, down to Edit in, and we're going to open as layers in Photoshop. Once Photoshop's loaded, we can see we've got our two images down here in the Layers tab, labelled foreground and background. Now the foreground one, I know the foreground is sharp, but the background is blurry, and the background one, I know the background is sharp, but the foreground is blurry. So the main step now is to get these images aligned. Now don't worry, because Photoshop does that for you. You just need to select both images, pop up to Edit, Auto Align Layers, and you can leave that pretty much on auto for most images. I've never actually had to do anything different. Hit OK. Once Photoshop's processed that, you might see a little bit of a white border on your image. That's just a slight movement in the camera between the two images. So that's where the tripod really comes in. If you didn't have it on a tripod, you'd probably have no chance hand holding. If you moved in between, that white border is going to be big. Now with our foreground layer selected, I'm just going to choose Eraser tool, and I'm going to erase the whole top of this image, which is going to reveal the in focus image underneath, like so. So if we zoom in now, we've got a sharp foreground. The water is acting as a buffer in between the foreground and the background, and we've also got a sharp background. So that's basically it. There's a bit of tidying up to do on the edges, which I'll do with cropping, but I can do that back in Lightroom. So you'll see that I've used this water as a kind of buffer between the foreground and the background on this image. Now I've done that because it's an easy one to edit. I'd suggest the first time you do it, using a similar image with a clear line or a buffer line in between your foreground and your background. But as you get better at this process, you can choose different images and really play about with your in focus and out of focus elements. You don't have to have everything in focus. If you wanted for something out of focus, you can use as many layers as you like and just choose which elements you want in focus and out of focus. So for now, it's just a case of highlighting both our layers, going up to Layer, Merge Visible, and that's just going to drop them layers down back into one image. We then hit Command and Save on Mac, or you can go to File and Save on Windows. And that's just going to save them images and magically drop them back into Lightroom as one image. Which is this one, Foreground Edit. So I can rename that. And there you've got your image back in Lightroom as one image, foreground in focus, background in focus, and then you can carry on playing with any edits you want to do there. I'm going to crop this one 4x5 for Instagram, like I do with most images. I'm just going to get rid of those white edges like so. Make sure the top of the trees are in. Done. And there we have it. Foreground in focus, background in focus. So that's the benefit of doing this process. If you've got something really close to the camera, you're going to struggle, even at maybe f8, something like that, to get both foreground and background elements in focus. So if you really want to get that foreground crisp and sharp, worry about that first and then move on to your background or your midground or any other elements that you need to focus on at different layers in your photo. So I hope you enjoyed that little tutorial video. If you did, let me know down below. I want to be doing a few more, so if you've got any ideas on what you might like to see, drop them in the comments below. If you got anything valuable from this video, hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss my future content, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.